So ransomware, it's a real global threat across the board, whether it's a single person getting hit with it, or again a company itself. You know, there's some you read about it in the news all the time. There's the Hollywood where they got hit with $17,000. They had to make payments. There's been medical places that have been hit. We've had some that got hit on our own side for some of our own end users. We've had just across the board. This is a constant threat, and it is rising right now. It's only getting to a point now where these kind of things are more and more easily done on a daily basis. I actually have a friend of mine who I was visiting, I don't know, a few weeks back, who's a security specialist, and he was showing me exactly how vulnerable different networks can be, you know. And we were at a hotel, you know, where you have the little logins and stuff for flights and stuff like that. You could check in, print your thing, whatever else. You know, while I'm sitting there kind of clicking around, you know, getting my tickets ready, whatever, you know, within 10 minutes, he was inside the network and telling me, see, now right here, this is how people, because I was asking him about it, you know, and he goes, well, this is how they do it. Once they're in here, I can see everybody on the network. I can lock them all up right now. I mean, it was really just within, you know, minutes that he was able to get into some of this stuff, and it really shows you the vulnerability. And so, you know, I mean, I was surprised that, I'm not real surprised, I know he's skilled, but and he's one of the good guys, so he's on our side. But the fact is, it really showed me how quickly some of this stuff can actually happen, and how easily some of these people can take advantage of this scenario. So, and yeah, again, unlike, you know, real world, you know, this could be somebody sitting anywhere going into these businesses, and the fact of the matter is the data for these businesses is the business, and if that gets lost, that puts businesses out of business, a lot of businesses. So yeah, just some of the things. 60% of businesses, you know, are estimated in 1 week to mitigate a ransomware threat. I mean, if you just look at some of these numbers, the amount of time lost, the amount of money that certain ones, if they're dealing with, you know, HIPAA compliance violation where people aren't allowed to access data, the amount of businesses that were hit, the amount that are capable of being hit, whether it's just links or bad emails, spam filters catch a lot of it. But as I said, the problem is when these things get hit, do you have a solution in place for them? Some of the examples, I'm sure, I don't know if you guys seen some of these, but you know, whether you get a blue screen errors where you get things saying, hey, FYI, these are encrypted. You got said 72 hours to contact us. You know, these are some of the big ones that have been out there where, you know, all of a sudden you're working, there's this message going on, and hopefully said you guys are protected. But these are ones where you're getting the call, right? And hey, you know what? I just got this message that popped up. What do I do? Or if you're like me, you got a call from your dad sitting there saying, well, I called this number and they said that for $300 they'll fix my computer. I'm like, what number? You know? So a lot of these things all start from the attack vectors, which means how people have the ability to access these networks. You know, there's the human errors. That's usually where it comes along. I said with my dad, it's you're double clicking on something. You click on an attachment. You know, I've got a Skype message the other day and stuff, and it was some weird thing of, hey Warner, make sure you click on this. I'll get ones that look like they're coming from friends or people I know, or responding from a retrospect point of view that basically are saying, you know, hey Warner, take a look at this. You're gonna like it. You know, and again, if it doesn't look right, I don't click. If one of you guys has sent me something funny and I never responded, it's probably because something didn't look right and your email didn't look right, whatever it was. But again, those kind of things, I've seen it happen. I've heard the stories. And so, again, human error, every single person in that network is a vector where they can be attacked. Both Mac and Windows have these issues. There can be block entire networks, or they can do just specific files. There's time-based encryptions. I think there's what was it, Sputnik or something like this, and and you know, where there, I was watching, they have these new series on, it's called Cyber Attacks and Awareness, whatever, but it's showing how that they put this little malware thing onto a flash drive, stuck it into this network, and it would do these time-based breakdowns of these physical units. That's malware, a little different than ransomware, but basically it's the same thing. It said some of these things can act on their own, some of them and stuff, it can actually not show up at the time. It'll say, great, even though the data's, you know, we got a hold of your stuff, but you may not know of it till 30 days in. So don't think that, okay, good, we got a hold of it, we're giving you the demand right now. No, sometimes they could be in there for quite a while. And again, once they have access to it, very easy to go in there, and they can sit there and say, well, yeah, we gave you access, but you know, we're going to lock it up again. And so with all these kind of things, you know, whether it's, you know, 0 days, vulnerabilities, whatever it is, the fact of the matter is, when it really comes to prevention, you can't. I mean, not everywhere. There's always going to be some sort of vulnerability that you can't do. Again, whether it's even just a human error thing. So yeah, trust me, I'm not going to read all this. You can read it all later. So yes, you can technically try. These are the kind of things that you guys all want to do to help prevent this ransomware to begin with. You know, personalize things. Make sure that you block and tell people don't click on links that you don't know about. Again, I'm not reading through all of them, trust me, because you can try. You can try. Keep the window, the firewall turned on. You can use strong passwords. Again, same friend and stuff said once, he goes, well, with your web password, he goes, do you want to give it to me, or should I see how long it takes me to break it? You know, these are the kind of scenarios that it's very important. So it's always be aware of all these kind of things can happen. Make sure that updates, a lot of the security flaws that are out there is because, you know, I even read, I was, again, watching these shows because, of course, very interesting stuff, and, you know, they were saying a lot of them that there's these vulnerabilities in the OSs and programs and whatever, and they go, a lot of them have already been patched, you know, and even though they've been patched, the updates themselves haven't not been taken care of. So, I mean, I went into my boss's office once, I don't know, it was a couple years ago, and he was telling me how his system wasn't running right, it was jammed up, and things weren't going. So I go in there and I kind of click around, and he had, must have been 20 or 30 updates that he never applied. And once I did it, everything started running again. He goes, well, I don't have time to do all that. It's like, you understand why they're patching them, right? You know, so these are the kind of scenarios, again, whether it's just human error or the fact that maybe they're running an older OS, all these kind of things are very important to assess and think through. Again, you know, train your employees, block the malicious ones right off the bat. You know, again, teach them about that links can come through Skype, links can come through instant messages, somebody that logs on using that maybe friends you on Facebook. So there's a lot of different ways that they can access these networks, and once they're in, they're in. So the fact of the matter, again, you guys will get this whole presentation, so there's a lot of good little things in there, but Lord knows I'm not going through all those. So the best defense, though, in any of these networks is to have a good backup. The fact of the matter is when it comes down to it, I actually downloaded malware, a little different than ransomware, kind of did it to myself on this. And you guys, sorry, just so you know too, again, as I'm talking, if you have questions, if you have anything you want to do, Robin's here. If you have some details or say, hey, you know, this happened to me, what's a good way to get around it? We have Robin available at any time for any detailed technical questions. We want to make sure that we guys had you covered on both sides to understand the issues and understand the solutions also. But again, the best thing is a good defense, and that means making sure you have full backups, making sure that you're backing up everything, that you're backing up often, that you have both on-site and off-site backups, so you have both online and offline backups. It's actually, some of this stuff, it's new to me. I mean, I always thought that, okay, cool, I'm doing my backups, especially when I was living in Colorado for a few, and you know, I thought well, I had my backup here to my local drive. I'm kind of all good to go. You know, I got backed up when I went to the office when I did, but other than that, I always had my extra copy. Well, it turns out I didn't realize that some of these things can actually attack the whole network and lock up those network drives. So if your only source of restore is that one backup media, that could get locked up as well. So I'm like, oh, okay, so then it's very crucial to always have a redundant offline copy as well, and that's whether you're going to disk, whether you're going to tape, whether you're moving it to a cloud target, and archiving data, whether you archive it from a long-term point of view, going, okay, you know what, these are crucial projects we're working on. These are the tax returns for the last 10 years, whatever it happens to be. You'll not only back up this data, but also be able to take it and archive it for long-term needs, to be able to store it for long-terms, to be able to set up a policy to say, I always want to be able to roll this thing back for the last 30 days, 60 days, or, you know, with Retrospect we could go up to 5 years. So you can actually set all sorts of policies in place to make sure that even if this data hits you, this corruption hits you, you have the ability to roll back previous to it. Again, I did my own malware, and when I did that, I all of a sudden said my backups went from, you know, 50 files on one day and 40 files the next day, and then the very next day I was downloading. I thought I was pretty safe. I was just downloading a new program to kind of take a better look from a geographical point of view. Most of you guys, and find out where it was when I was traveling around that I could actually visit people. And when I did that, all of a sudden the next backup was 121,000 files, and my whole computer started slowing down, and I realized, well, that just as easily could have been ransomware. Fortunately, it was malware, but because of it, I said, okay, you know what? This happened a day ago. I actually rolled back the previous day, and obviously I am up and running again. But again, if that was ransomware, it was the same exact scenario, and my only backup was the one from the previous day, I might not be in such luck, because I would have gotten a message saying, hey, we got a hold of this. If you want your data, let us know. And if my last backup was connected, if my last backup was from 2 days ago, I may have done it at that point, and at that point, everything's lost. And again, even if you pay, doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get it back. Even when you pay, sorry, fingers rolling around here. Even when you pay, sometimes when you get the data back, because of the way they encrypt it, it actually unencrypts the data and corrupts the files when it comes back. So even when they try to restore it back and they say, and you do pay off the demands, that's not even a guarantee that your files are going to come back correctly. So, also said, make sure that you retain the data, you have multiple copies, and again, little thing, then you don't have to worry about this kind of scenario. Make sure you have also, when you're doing this, a plan for disaster recovery, which means that if in fact you need to do it, that you have a plan saying, okay, my main server's down, do I have the Retrospect software available on another machine here that I can get up and going? Do I got a copy of those my snapshots of where my backups were, so I can utilize that machine to do the restoring of those systems? So again, these are the plans, again, of not just what can happen, but what to do if. You know, UC San Francisco, one of our clients and stuff actually got hit by malware. I think it was earlier this year, just a few months back. And fortunately, because they were utilizing Retrospect, we're able to actually get their systems up and running again, rolling it back previous to them getting hit by that malware. Or sorry, the ransomware. It wasn't malware, it was actually ransomware. And so we get this call going, okay, what do we do? But again, they got those long-term storage, the archives, they got the backups that went back months ago, they had some on tape. It wasn't all just connected to some direct attached drive. Again, if you have direct attached, that's totally fine. Rotate them off and off-site so you always have an offline copy. Or again, take now with the new hybrid solution, move it off to a cloud target, so again, it's not connected to that network. But again, because of that, they were able to do it. These are just personal ones. I already mentioned, said my own personal war story is my dad, my daily or weekly call of, yep, I got this phone number, you know, and every time you try to explain, but the concept, it goes like somebody knocking on your door, and you open up the door going, what's going on? Well, once you open the door, it's too late. I go, so his system, he's weekly get these phone numbers and whatever, and you kill it off, and it's he's paid money, you know, and you're just, it's one of those things where this is just pure whatever. He must have clicked on a link or went on something, or, you know, he was actually, turns out he was going through his spam folder thinking he had to delete all the email out of there. You know, so some of these things, you know, it's just, I'm sure, yeah, I said, I'm sure I'm not alone. I've heard stories from you guys. I know, you know, whether it's your mother, your father, your customer, whatever it is, these kind of things happen all the time. Robin, who's actually on the line here with us, also was hit by ransomware, and same thing, was able to fortunately roll back his system. So even in our own network and stuff, you know, I don't know his exact story. Maybe Robin's going to get on for some technical questions later on, but he can tell us more details in regards to what had happened and how he was able to do the restore on it. But again, these happen to people you know, it happens to companies you know, it happens to clients you work with, and again, the solution is backup. The solution is going, are we backing up everything? Are we retaining the dates? You know, a long enough copy of it. Do we have the data going back on both server and the endpoints to disk? You know, is it to a not connected to the network? If we back it up to one on the network, do we have that offsite copy, whether it's going to tape, whether it's going to another disk, whether it's going to a cloud target? Again, whether it's Mac, whether it's Windows, do you have that whole network covered and covered correctly? And again, that's where Retrospect comes in, whether it's the latest OS, whether it's the latest tape, whether it's a need for a general hybrid solution. Retrospect can go in there and offer you the protection of these ransomware threats that are, again, are constant influence on how people are doing everything on the internet nowadays. Again, it's I think a good quote was from one of my friend said that the best protection that people have on the internet is white noise. And the fact of the matter is if nobody's targeting you, you're probably pretty good. But the problem is when they do target you, you're vulnerable. And so those are the kind of things you have to think about when you're dealing with ransomware. And I said the prevention is backup and backup and backup. Again, you'll get the whole list of all the full little tools, the prevention things you could try to do. You know, again, it's all about limiting it. This isn't just about Retrospect. It's really about making sure that Retrospect can be utilized to help you better protect your networks, but again, also want to get you all that information in regards to the go-to things that you should do to set up these networks correctly. Now, Robin, I know you're on here somewhere.
Yeah, are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah, so I can hear you now, so I'm guessing they can. So, yeah, if you can tell them like what happened to you and how you were able to, you know, restore your data.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Why don't you make me the presenter so that I can show my screen?
I can definitely do that. Let's see. I think. Let's see. In theory. Okay. All right. It is yours, Robin.
Let's see. Let me switch screens and say show my screen. And everyone should be able to see my copy of Retrospect. Warner, can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, so just to be clear for everybody, you know, if you do have questions, there's a question section for GoToWebinar where you can type your question. You can't always unmute yourself, but you can ask questions in the little question box at the bottom. And so, I'm going to show basically what you do in the case of ransomware. We'll talk about, you know, what in my case what happened. Warner kind of mentioned that I got hit by it, and in my situation, you know, I have a machine that basically has two purposes. It was a backup server and it was used for surfing the web. Probably not the best combination, but it is what it is. And so, one day that machine got hit by ransomware. How it happened, who knows? I think we were probably, went to a website or something, did a Google search, went to the wrong page, and then the next thing we knew, the machine got hit by ransomware, and then all of the Word documents, the Excel files, everything on the machine that was, important other than the backup in reality, got encrypted. And it was my first experience with it. I had no idea how to handle it. I had no idea, what to deal with, what to do. I wasn't exactly sure, what was happening. Was it just a regular virus? Was it ransomware? Eventually I double-clicked on my own documents, and I got the warnings that, I could pay someone to decrypt the data. And, I was thinking, well, what could I do to fix it? Could I, restore my Word documents, my Excel files? Would that be enough? Could I download a free antivirus program and let it scan the machine and fix it? So I'm like doing Google searches, trying to figure out the best way to, fix the problem. And I eventually just, gave up. I was like, well, I'm not gonna solve the problem with, a repair with antivirus software. I'm not gonna be able to solve the problem by doing a virus scan. I need to just, wipe the entire machine and start fresh. I'm not gonna, I don't want to risk the virus coming back or risk the original problem coming back again. So in a case like that, the first thing I did from a retrospect point of view was I checked my backup drive. So, I went to, my computer, and you guys should be able to see this. I went to my computer, I opened up my backup drive, I found my retrospect folder, I looked at my different backup folders, and I looked in it, and I saw that all of my retrospect data files were still here. There's all these .rdb data files. Those files were ignored by the ransomware. Will that be true in 100% of the cases? I don't know. But in my particular case, the ransomware only impacted Microsoft Office type documents and known file types. It didn't know what a retrospect data file was, so it did not encrypt any of my backup data. And so, that was a sigh of relief. In a worst case scenario, I had another hard drive that was not plugged into my machine. It was an offline backup that I could have used. And I would never plug that offline backup into the machine until I've eradicated the virus. So you want to make sure that you don't put your off-site backup or your safe backup into any kind of harm until you have eradicated whatever the virus is. But I did see, okay, well, I've got all my retrospect data. My backup appears to be safe. I think I'm in good shape there. So the next thing I did was I actually went over to a laptop that I had. I installed a copy of Retrospect on the laptop, and then I went through the disaster recovery wizard. So inside Retrospect, if I go to disaster recovery, there's a wizard that allows me to create a bootable recovery disk that will work on pretty much any machine. Choose 32-bit or 64-bit operating systems. I choose whether I want to use a flash disk or an ISO. In my case, I chose ISO because I chose flash because I always have a flash drive or a thumb drive in my pocket. So I, pulled it out of my pocket, plugged it into the machine, and then I let Retrospect create a bootable recovery disk onto my flash media. And so once I had that bootable recovery disk on flash media, I pulled it out of my laptop, I went over to my desktop machine, plugged it into the USB port, and rebooted. And so, I went into the BIOS and I made sure that Windows was configured to boot from USB media. In my case, I could have used an ISO or burned it to a CD and just made sure Windows would boot from a CD. But once I had Windows booting off of my flash media, then it took me into the Retrospect recovery mode. And I don't really have that console available to show today, but basically you get a choice of either doing a local restore or doing a network-based restore. I have an option to reformat my hard drives or reconfigure my drives. And so I took the next step of okay, I'm going to erase the hard drives, my C drive, while I'm booted off the Retrospect recovery disk. I don't want to deal with this virus ever again. I don't want to worry about it. So I asked the Retrospect recovery console to erase or reformat my C drive, which is always scary. I let it reformat the drive, and then I clicked the button that said restore locally. And then once I clicked restore locally, it took me into a Retrospect interface that looks exactly like what we see now. And all I did at that point was I went to restore, I switched to advanced mode, I chose the option to restore an entire volume, and then for source, I went to my backup set. Well, in this case, I probably, if I remember right, I didn't actually have my catalog file because the catalog file was on my machine and I just erased it. So what I would do is go to more, and then I can choose this option to recreate. And then I would use disk because I'm going to recreate from disks. And then I would have navigated to my backup drive and gone through the process of doing a catalog rebuild. I'm not going to do it right now, but essentially you would do a catalog rebuild from the media if you don't have a copy of the catalog. And then once that catalog rebuild is done, then I can go back and I can actually do my restore. And I'm going to go to show, and it looks like I've got an encrypted backup set. And so I unencrypted my backup set by entering my password. And Retrospect is now showing me all of the past backups that I have on this machine. In this case, I have 2 backups of my C drive and a backup of a documents folder. Well, because I'm booted off the recovery disk and I just erased my C drive, I pretty much want to restore my entire C drive. So I would just select the C drive, I let Retrospect go through and do its matching, and then I go to destination and I decide where am I going to restore the data to. And you basically would select the C drive or whatever drive letter the C drive is while you're booted off the recovery disk. Make sure it says replace entire volume. I click OK. I confirm that I'm going to replace it. I let Retrospect do its scanning and its matching. And then when this is all done, all I need to do is click the restore button at the bottom. Then Retrospect will perform a bare metal restore or BMR or whatever you want to call it. Retrospect is going to do a complete restore of everything on my most recent backup onto my C drive, and when the restore is done, I just reboot. And that's what I did. I let the restore finish, I rebooted my Dell desktop, and once the restore was done and I rebooted, everything came back and I had exactly what I had on my machine at the time of that most recent backup. The virus was gone, all my data was back up and running, and the only downtime I had was the time it took for me to do the restore, and the only data I lost was the files that had changed between the time of my most recent backup and the time that I got hit by the virus. And the reality is I was happy to lose, one night's worth of data because it was a lot less data lost than it would have been if I had not had a backup or if a virus had, taken out my backup somehow. So the takeaway from all of this is that, Retrospect will allow you to do a full BMR or bare metal recovery in the event of, this sort of ransomware virus. If ransomware hits your machine and you've got on-site backups and you've got off-site backups, and you've made a decision ahead of time to do backups of the entire C drive, whether it's incremental backups or full backups, as long as you have a backup of the C drive, Retrospect protects all of the data, including the registry, the system state, everything you would need to recover that machine in the event of that disaster, so you don't need to worry about the virus.
There's a question, Robin, and that's does boot option have network enabled to share to a shared network drive, like if you have backups in the cloud?
Thanks, Warner, because I can't see the questions, so that is helpful. So if the question was if I had the backup was stored in the cloud, what would I do? Is that kind of question? So there's two different options with Retrospect when it comes to cloud stuff, and I'm stopping the scan that's going on right now because I don't need to see it. When we think about it, the data, your backup might be stored in 2 different places. It could be stored on a NAS device that is located somewhere else in your building. It could be a NAS device in a different building, or it could be literally a cloud backup set, which Retrospect offers. So it could be on Amazon S3, it could be on Dropbox, either one of those. So in a case where your data is out on the cloud, the downside is the speed of the restore. The amount of time it's going to take to restore the data from the cloud is going to take a lot longer because of the speed of your pipe that you're dealing with. But if the catalog file for your cloud backup set is lost, then you would do a cloud backup set rebuild. You would go to More under Configure Backup Sets. You would choose the Recreate option. You would choose Cloud. You could also go to Tools, Repair Catalog File, Recreate from Cloud, and then you would enter in your credentials. So you would enter in the path for the cloud, and I'll show you an example of what that might look like if I can get my notes up here. Just waiting for a document to load. And let's see if I can find it. Just give me a moment. And so you would enter in the credentials, which might include the path, the access key, the security key, and then you would go to next, and then Retrospect will see that backup set in the cloud folder and allow you to rebuild it. If I can find my credentials, I can actually show you. There it is. I might be able to show you the start of a catalog rebuild.
And this that's actually a good point too. When you're doing the disaster recovery, stuff like that, knowing where your credentials are, especially when you guys it's not your own, you got 20 different clients you're dealing with, so making sure you have that information ready. I told some of the guys last week where my wife's truck was actually stuck in another city and the lights wouldn't go on. And so she ended up driving home with no headlights, because I couldn't think of a better plan at the time. Well, once we get back, I'm digging through my papers. Turns out we got an old platinum insurance plan, and they would have just towed it back for us, So knowing the things ahead of time is very crucial. It said Robin knows where it is, you can find it. But yeah, having these kind of things so when that does hit, it's all about how quickly you can have that access that data and get them back up to going from a continuity point of view.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I might, one of the places I might keep something like this might be, if you're a Mac user, I have iCloud and I use Notes, which synchronizes across all my machines, and so I keep, sometimes I'll keep certain credentials there. I also use 1Password, and so you might use a utility like that to track all of the credentials. But after I entered the info, you can see that Retrospect is allowing me access to these different backup sets that are out in the cloud, and I select it. I choose I want to rebuild it. It asks if there are any more buckets. I'm going to say no, and now Retrospect will start a catalog rebuild. This data, I don't even know what's in this backup set that I'm rebuilding, but Retrospect is now connected to the cloud, and it's beginning a catalog rebuild for that data. Once that catalog rebuild is done, then I would be able to start my restore. And you can do this while booted off the bare metal recovery disk. That disk does have access to networking and to internet, and so you'd be able to do that. If it was a NAS device, it's a similar sort of thing. When you do a tools, repair catalog, and recreate from disks, you have an advanced option here. You can enter the UNC path to your NAS device. You can go to My Network Places and browse. So you can gain access to your cloud data. The other thing that Amazon will do, if you have enough time, is you can work with Amazon. If it's a lot of data, they'll ship you a drive with the data on it, and you then once 2 days later or whatever it is, or 3 days later, you get the drive from Amazon. You could then use the option to do the catalog rebuild from local storage rather than from cloud storage.
We had another question of, does it work the same on the Mac? And obviously no from the DRC.
Yeah. So that's a good point. The Mac is a little bit different. Now, fortunately, most Mac users aren't going to experience ransomware. It doesn't happen nearly as often on the Mac. If it does, the scenario basically is this. On the Macintosh, you would go into the recovery console on the Mac, and I can't remember what the key sequence is, but you go into the Macintosh recovery console, and the Mac OS will allow you to then get an installer for the OS. And you would install the Mac OS onto an external hard drive. some sort of USB hard drive. And then once the Mac OS is installed on a USB hard drive, you would then boot off of that USB hard drive and then install a copy of Retrospect onto that USB hard drive that you're now booted from. And once you're booted off the external hard drive and you have Retrospect on that external hard drive, you can then do a catalog rebuild if necessary, and then you can then do a full hard disk, restore of your Macintosh HD if you felt that was necessary. Or you could do a restore of just your documents or user folder or whatever else you need to get back. But the scenario is you don't use Retrospect to create the recovery disk. You use the Mac OS recovery console to install the OS onto an external hard drive, and then once the OS is installed on an external hard drive, you have your own emergency boot disk that you've created, and that'll probably boot most Macs.
Excellent. Thanks. And
then it looks like my catalog rebuild just finished. Wasn't a lot of data, but it did do it at 970 megs a minute. So in my case, I've got a fairly fast internet connection, cable modem, and so that was a reasonable speed. That's comparable to a local catalog rebuild speed in some cases. So that's good.
From a cloud point of view, with the Mac, again, same. Once you get into it, it's the same basic steps when you're like restoring from cloud or NAS or.
Yeah, I mean it is. So with a NAS, you would just go to sources inside Retrospect, and you would choose the Add button, and then once you add the source as a NAS device, then it'll appear in Retrospect, and you'll have access to it for catalog rebuild. And so having a NAS device is great. But there's always a potential that a NAS device could be infected by the ransomware. The NAS device is connected to your network, and it's connected to machines on your network. So your NAS device shouldn't be your only backup. You should have, off-site backup data. Retrospect has an option for disk-to-disk to tape or disk-to-disk to cloud, or what's called a staged backup. So when you look inside Retrospect under Tools, and you go to either Transfer Backup Set or Transfer Snapshots, that will allow you to take your local backup, let's say your local, USB hard drive or NAS device that's always connected, and then copy this data to, let's say, a tape. So I've got this Tuesday tape that I've created. That might be my off-site backup. And so I can configure Retrospect either on a schedule or with an immediate operation to do periodic transfers of my local backups to my off-site media so that I can get that media out of the building without backing up all the data again from every machine on my network. So I can save a fair amount of time and network bandwidth by using the transfer options in Retrospect on the Macs. They're called copy options. And by setting those up on a regular basis for off-site storage, it's going to give you greater data protection.
And there's another question that says, can you use another Mac in target disk mode on the infected, or is the target mode gone?
I don't really recommend it. Talking to customers, I don't see a lot of good success with that when dealing with full operating system restores. It's just there's a lot of things related to like permissions, as an example. When you go into target disk mode, you're now relying on the user account for the machine you're booted from, and the permissions related to that machine. And then when you go to do a full disk restore to your new hard drive, it's basing it off of the user account that you're running off of. It just on the Mac, just target disk mode I've found it's just not ideal for full system restores.
Thanks.
I mean, you're welcome to try it. I just don't recommend it.
Excellent.
Any other questions from the group? I mean, these are really good questions.
So it looks like, at least at this point, they're done. Anybody want to see anything else that needs to be done? Or said again, just so you know too, with all this, we do have another question coming here, is that we actually are creating actual, I don't know, say presentation, whatever, all about Retrospect and disaster recovery in general. So just, you know, we're going to have that available to you guys soon in regards to dissimilar hardwares versus restoring files, everything. We're actually getting that put together right now that we're going to be able to have accessible to you guys shortly, just in general, not focused just on ransomware, but just disaster recovery in general. So some comments in regards to, and then this is a comment in regards to OpenDNS. And the comments are on their way. So,
so in general about the recovery disk, for building a recovery disk, we do have tutorials on our website that show how to create the recovery disk, and the tutorials also show you what it looks like while you're booted off the recovery disk.
So do you have any? I guess, do you have any comments about OpenDNS?
I don't know anything about OpenDNS, honestly. I have no experience with it, so I'm not someone who can answer questions about it.
Well, if you have specific questions, you know, in regards to that, or if you have questions specific around that, not you, Robin, said talking to them, you know, let me know. Said I can definitely get the answers pulled together for you. As I said, my best friend is a security specialist, so some of this stuff I'm sure I can run by him and some other sources to get detailed answers. So if you do have questions, you know my email address, fire them off, and I can get you more in-depth ones later on. Okay, here's more detailed. OpenDNS says claims to prevent buried ransomware modules from communication with their home office. So
yeah, I mean, if you're able to implement something that you know gives you that level of additional protection, you know, then you know why not go for it?
Yeah, and again, I think you know that's a good point, and this is part of all those little facts and figures and stuff that I didn't go over in detail. But with all this, you know, prevention's the first step, right? That's the first thing you want to do is, do you have the network secure? Do you have the what people need to be doing in place? Do you have the disaster recovery plans prepared? So all these kind of things, yes, there's a lot of different things you could do from a prevention point of view. And, you know, like I said, I did the best research I could do on it in regards, but that, yes, you should definitely implement it. But again, people are clever out there, and, you know, they have ways to get in and get around. So the only true solution is to make sure that if something gets by, whatever prevention you put in place, you have a way to get the data back. So before it was ever hit. So I guess OpenDNS is now a Cisco product. So. And let's see, another question. Salesy one. Let's see, could you go over non-distribution purchase reselling? Okay, so let's see, so the question is, can you go over non-distribution purchasing reselling? How do we buy at a discount and then provide licensing? Portal for 45, user portal for 45 days evaluation. Now what comes next week? Okay, so we have a couple different ways to source Retrospect. You can go through the channel. We have our main distributors, which would be like Ingram, Cynics. If you have education, you can utilize Douglas Stewart as well. Some of our people utilize larger DMRs, the CW, PC connections, stuff like that, to be able to get discounts from MSRP price points. We do have a direct web store available, and we have a portal for our partners that we can actually get you logged in, where you have built-in discounts to source directly. The good point about the 45-day evaluation is, yes, we have these full trials available. I think I may have it coming in another slide or so, but there are only 2 more left, I think. But and during that 45-day trial, you can just purchase the correct license. It'll convert that trial over to a permanent license code. It's a great way for if some of the, you know, you have some customer base to be able to sit there and say, you know what, look, let's show you the benefit of doing this, and they could do it. There's no cost to them right off the bat. You could show them to say, hey, look, if we do this, this is how we protect it. Here's the benefits of it. Here's how we can protect you from these ransomwares. And we can set up these backups. And again, once you get going, you purchase a license, it converts over to the permanent license. So we have a couple different ways to do it. I'll make sure I get you all the the link to be able to do a direct purchase with the built-in discounts. If anybody needs that, I'll make sure I send that information out. Again, our main distribution is the main ways to do it. One more question, or one more comment or question or something. It says, I'm installing a product called Crypto Prevent and installing it on my client systems. It uses advanced features of the group policy editor to prevent ransomware from encrypting files. Any comments to that, Robin?
I mean, it sounds great. I think that, you know, other people listening to this, you know, may want to research that as a product that might help them.
Yeah, and again, this is, and all these things, again, the comments, you know, I mean, it's good that we can all share amongst each other here. So, yeah, definitely these kind of things, and again, once you go through the full list of all those different things, all these prevention methods are very important. Again, but you can have all the prevention things in the world. You know, we used to be part of EMC, and with all the prevention, all it takes is the wrong person clicking on the wrong thing, allowing access to something that they shouldn't have had access to. Maybe somebody that has the rights to unencrypt some of the state. You know, so once they got access to some of these networks, then they can maybe also get access to the whatever preventions you've put in place. So yes, again, more preventions the better, and at the same time, again, the only true way to make sure that there's no way, you know, or the only way to prevent yourself from data loss or a ransomware cost is to make sure that you take that power away from them and basically say, look, you know what, we're going to roll back before this ever happened. You know, it's, you know, if you think you got any leverage, you don't. So, and so I'll send I got a link here in regards to some of the malware prevention and stuff and everything, but I'll definitely send that out as well if you guys have. So, one of the responses in regards to the crypto prevent thing, it says is I was told it puts ransomware application to sleep, so it isn't active. So I said, I think a lot of this stuff, the more we share this information and how we all do these kind of things, it's going to make it safer for everyone, you know, out there, all for us, for our partners, for your end users. And again, all this information we got between the links and the information, I'll make sure you guys all get that, so that way you guys can move that forward much more secure than you did, hopefully, when you got here. Sorry, gone, Robin? So, yeah, a lot of good information. As I said, again, a lot of you guys deal with a lot of stuff on day-to-day. We see it usually after the fact. We see it when people have already gotten hit and calls up going, oh my God, what do we do? You know, and again, first step, prevention, but the reality is the best defense, you have a good backup, you take that away from them, and then that way, whatever pull they thought they had, it's no longer of any use because you can just roll back to a previous point. So, were you done showing what you needed to on those?
Yeah,
Robin?
you want me to switch it back over to you?
Yeah, that'd be great. And again, if you guys have any more questions or of what you're doing or whatever else, definitely keep mentioning it, telling me. So it's very good. It's very good for everybody to hear and know. Some great ransomware sources that we found are right here. If you guys have other ones, you know, we're see if we can't set up a little page or something to make sure that you guys can keep up to date in regards to the latest of what to where to find information, how to prevent these kind of things moving forward. And again, I'll be sending all this to you. And again, with this, like you were mentioned before, we have video training tutorials, how to do disaster recoveries, how to do these backups, how to back up to the cloud targets, how to do the full system restored, bare metal recoveries. You have the sales hotline. You know, you guys have my direct extension here. It goes directly to me if you ever have any questions. You got Robin, You got some claps, Robin. So we got Robin available at any time for when you need something more than pretty pictures or whatever, and you need some actual technical step-through help. You got Robin here, who's always available to help you guys out. And we got Jeff. We got our whole tech support team, always willing to jump in to make sure that you guys are taken care of, and ergo, so are your end-user clients. And we're always available for questions, whatever. Said again, if you're just questioning, yeah, how do you source this? You know, how do you guys make your margin from a partner point of view? You know, so you don't have to pay from an MSRP point of view. If it's just a one-off, let me know. We can do it, but I can create specific links just for you. So there's all sorts of options to do it, but also I'll make sure that you have that available to you. Yes, as said, Alan the Tech said, we have some very skilled technical people, been around for a long time, been working with both Mac and Windows for a long time, disaster recovery for a long time. So it's a very, very experienced team, and said we're lucky to have them. And again, as you guys know, when you call in or email in or anything else, they're always available to support. So with that, oops, the wife again. I will switch the picture soon, so that way when I keep failing by having her pop up, you guys at least get a new picture of her every time. Again, so all these kind of things, the prevention methods, whether it's you know, say disabling, whatever, whether it's the comments that we've had here from our own partners, blocking malicious ones, whatever it happens to be, always just remember that it's one quick solution is Retrospect. Just make sure you got a backup. Make sure that you have archives there for long-term needs. So that way, if something happens locally, and these are just data loss in general as well, that you have clone, that you have quickly accessible files if you need it from a continuity point of view, that, again, you have the on-site and off-site, online and offline media. So these aren't going to be an issue for you guys in the future. So if you guys have additional questions moving forward, you guys should all have my email, but I have all yours, so I will make sure that I send you this Prezzo with my contact information. If you have additional things to add to it, going, oh, I probably should have mentioned this. You know, the fact that, I don't know if we mentioned, maybe Robin did, the fact that we encrypt the data. So when you're moving the data to the cloud, the fact that we actually encrypt that data before we move it there. You know, very, very important. If somebody, again, accesses that data, if somebody accesses your NAS remotely, they're going to get a bunch of encrypted files. Even if they did target it, they still can't utilize those files because, again, they're encrypted, you know. And not everybody can do, like, you know, we have the Air Force and other places that utilize Retrospect where they move data silo to silo with no internet connections, you know. So not everybody has those kind of real-world things. It'd be nice that everybody could live in that such security. The fact of the matter is, as long as that ransomware threats, malware threats are out there, again, best offense is a good defense. And I appreciate you guys taking the time, showing up, getting here. I appreciate the questions. Robin, thank you for taking the time to talk to everyone. And again, if you have any other questions, let me know. And if you guys haven't enrolled already in our program, to get the NFRs, get everything tested at your own site, make sure you ping me, let me know. Get enrolled. I'll get you the enrollment link information so we can start moving forward safer. All right. So you guys have a great rest of the week. Thank you guys for showing up. I'll get this stuff to you as quickly as possible. And again, thank you, Robin.
Thanks, everybody.
You guys all have a great day.